Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be heading to Enid, Oklahoma to pick up some 24-inch pipe, some 16-inch pipe, and we're also going to meet Kenny, a good friend of mine. He's a rig welder. Kenny was actually an inspiration to me whenever I first started mobile rig welding, so I'm very humbled that he's going to take the time to share some of his story with you. But like a lot of us mobile rig welders, Kenny did not start out with a mobile welding truck. He had to learn how to weld. He started out making very little per hour, and he drove a Honda Accord back and forth to several jobs for over 10 years before he ever started mobile welding. Before we head that way, I did want to let you know that the pipe fence course is now open for enrollment. Enrollment will close this Monday, July 24th. If you want to sign up, or if you have no idea what the pipe fence course is, either way, go to arosswelding.school. You can read all about it there. But in short, to let you know who the pipe fence course is for, it is for landowners, farmers, welding business owners, DIYers. It's basically a step-by-step guide on how to build pipe fence, all the nitty-gritty details on what to do before you ever break ground. There's a business section for welding business owners that are wanting to offer it to customers, and much, much more. The link to our website will be in the description below this video. Now it's time to grab your coffee, kick back, and enjoy the video. All right, this is Kenny. He's a good friend of mine. Kenny, first of all, thank you for loaning us this pipe. We're gonna do huge things with this pipe. I got lots of plans for the pipe. We'll talk about it here in a little bit, but Kenny has a lot of years of experience on drilling rigs, and that's where he's got all this pipe. And so he actually watches my videos, which is humbling to me because Kenny is actually somebody that inspired me to start rig welding, and I'll kind of go over how I met Kenny years ago, but I just want to introduce y'all to Kenny. But thanks for taking the time to share some stuff about yourself and your story, because I think a lot of you all will enjoy this and hopefully get inspired by it. So just to give you a background, the way I met Kenny was through a welder buddy of mine, Cayman. You remember Cayman?
Yeah, Cayman.
He's my age. He's we went to high school together. We both went to Votech our junior and senior year of high school for welding. Cayman's dad knew Fisher, which is another, and Fisher is the last name. Fisher knows Kenny, and that's how me and Cayman welded fence for Fisher, and that's how we met Kenny. I can't remember where we first met. I want to say we were eating lunch or something. Do you remember where you first met me and Cayman?
I think it was out on a job site.
Was it? You might have stopped by a job.
Fisher.
Okay.
And then I also seen you at Stillwater Steel.
Okay.
Met you over there.
All right, y'all have heard about Stillwater Steel. I've talked about that on the channel quite a bit. So that's how I met Kenny, was through a friend of mine. And Kenny's notorious for stopping by job sites. Like he said, he remembers meeting us on one of Fisher's job sites, welding on a pipe fence in high school. Me and Cayman would, mostly on the weekends, I think, maybe during the summers, but I remember a lot of like Saturdays and Sunday mornings driving to the Enid area, because that's where Kenny and Fisher are from, is the Enid, Oklahoma area. And at real early morning, starting out welding on pipe fence, and Fisher would pay me and Cayman by the foot, not by the hour, but by the foot. Cayman had a welding rig put together. I didn't, so I just used one of Fisher's weld machines, and we would just weld our little 16-year-old, 17-year-old butts off all day. You know, wind, sleet, or snow, didn't matter. We just welded, because the faster we were, the more money we made. So anyway, Kenny, the reason I bring up the fact that Kenny's notorious for stopping by and visiting, because me personally, that's something that I like about Kenny, is that he's not afraid to stop and introduce himself. It's kind of a I know we have a wide range of age of viewers that watch the channel, but I know some of you are, you know, 16, 18 years old, and you may not be used to that because of the world you're growing up in, but I find it very valuable to do what Kenny has done probably most of his career. He's not afraid to go up and ask people, you know, what their name is. Just stop in. He stops by the house all the time, and just to see what I'm doing. You know, just old school visiting, stopping and introduce yourself. It's a real authentic way to like spread your name, you know, when you're trying to get into the welding industry specifically. But networking, you know, I talk about networking all the time, but Kenny's very good at that. So that's how I met Kenny. All right, so I've wrote down a few questions because I don't want this to get too long-winded like it already probably has. But so to keep me on track, I've got some questions here. one of the things that I'm super curious about, Kenny, is what or who inspired you to be a rig welder, to get into welding or be a rig welder?
Okay, so I was going to a class in school, and this rig welder showed up and fabbed up a basketball goal, backstop, and all this, and put this basketball goal in, and then all the kids from the community would come and play at this basketball goal. And I was like, that's what I wanted to do. And I was a 9th grader. So when I got a chance to go to Votech and learn how to weld, I was like, that's my key. I'm going to go to Votech and learn how to, they call it Autry now, but so we went to Votech, did it for 2 years, and then I started in farm industrial, and then after farm industrial went to construction, and then I went to the oil field, which was chasing drilling rigs, doing a little bit of pipelining, and I've been a lot of structural, just a lot of welding on drilling rigs here since 03, 02 is when I started drilling rigs, and been doing it ever since. And
so what do you remember specifically about that? Was it the welding truck whenever he come and fabbed up that basketball goal, or was it?
I think it was because of all the community and all the kids coming and played the basketball.
It was just cool to see him build something and the community benefit from it.
Yes.
That's what you were like, man, that is cool. Like,
boy, that's the light bulb going off.
Yeah, like I want to learn how to build things.
Yes.
You know, just because it's a skill. I mean,
people need to weld, and people need to, stuff for the community and help the community out.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So tell us about your childhood. What I mean by that is brief us on how your upbringing was.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, my dad was a mechanic all my life at Vance Air Force Base, and then my mom was secretarial work. And so growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of money, but we had money that we could eat, and my dad was a mechanic, so he'd work on his own vehicles and just work during the day on jet engines, and evening times he'd work in gas stations and whatever, changing oil. So I graduate high school and start welding, and I didn't like the mechanic deal because you break your knuckles. Old school, now you got all these battery operated stuff for getting fasteners off and on, and so I didn't want to break my knuckles.
But you knew you didn't want a mechanic.
Right, I knew I didn't want a mechanic.
You liked the welding.
Yes.
You took that route like you've already told us. Okay, I just think it's interesting to hear people's childhoods, and I've kind of already asked what inspired him, but I just think our childhood plays a lot of what we do for a living, what we enjoy doing. Clearly, from what we've learned from Kenny so far, is the community aspect. You have the skill and you can give back to your community. So, which I think is really, really cool. So, after Votech, or even during Votech, I'm curious, what was your first welding job?
Okay, so my first year in Votech, we were in the class a lot, learning the book stuff and the blueprint reading and blueprinting, and then learn how to weld, auction settling, and then stick weld, and then MIG weld. Then we went to TIG, and then submerged arc. But then that second year, a truck would come in and we could actually build something or repair something, and then that last 8 weeks or so, got to do the on-job training type deal and go get your job. And
so what was your first welding job? Was it on the job, or was it, did you get to job out?
Yes, I got the job out.
What was that?
And I worked for Waco here in town as MIG welding, tying bars behind implements, build them, and that's paycheck to paycheck.
What do you remember? What the hourly rate was back
I think
then?
it was like $7-8 back then. An hour.
What year would that have been? I don't.
89.
89. $7 or $8 an hour.
Yeah.
Would that be considered single hand?
Yeah, single hand.
Single hand welding. You don't have your own stuff. You use the shop's welding machine. So $7 or $8 an hour. That's crazy. But how long did you work there?
Year and a half.
And did you learn anything?
Yes, I learned stuff.
That's the important thing to me. I know I've shared my story a lot. Stillwater Steel didn't pay. I think I got started out like $9 or $9.50 an hour in 2008 or 2007, whatever that was. But I gained so much experience from it. So it's it's a very vital part in a lot of rig welders' experience is where they started and how little they worked for, but they were gaining experience, which has paid off tenfold.
Yes, later
today,
on, yeah,
because
today.
It taught you a lot. It got you to that next level of, you know, wherever you wanted to be at in your career. So I just think that's good to point out. This is going to be a fun one. Actually, I want to throw one in here. How long did you work single hand before you put together a truck? Like, did you work another job after that, or?
I worked single hand until 02 or 03.
So from 89 to 02. Shop? Some mobile for other people, or mostly shops?
No, mostly shop.
Wow.
I did make a trailer and put a welder on a trailer and had a set of bottles, and did after, you know, evening work.
Yeah.
And fix stuff like that.
Right, like your own side, you know, working on the side.
Hustle.
Yeah, but had that steady single hand paycheck, if you will, for, you know, to keep the bills paid, keep your. What did you drive? These questions are literally just coming to me. These ain't wrote down. What did you drive at your single hand jobs? Pickup, car?
Just a car.
Just a
car.
What
Show
kind?
up with a welding hood. And
do you remember what kind of car it was?
it was a Honda Accord. Is what I had.
Gotcha. I love that. I really do. I think that's. I drove a Dodge Neon in high school, so I get it. Before I ever had a welding truck. Okay, so here's my next question. What was your first welding truck?
It's a Dodge 95, which Austin ended up with. So
that's what I wanted to ask about.
So my first welding truck ended up Austin owning it.
Yeah, so that's cool. Did you buy it new or no?
No, bought it used. I worked for Enid Farm and Ranch, was Garfield Equipment later on. So John Green had it, and he co-signed the note for me to get it, and I paid him for it, and then I put a welding bed on it. Troy Spencer, I bought a bed from Troy Spencer and put it on there, and went to welding in the evening times. And then after I left Garfield Equipment, I went to Enid Right Way Construction Company and worked 4 years for Right Way. And then after Right Way, I started my own company December 15th of 06. I went out on my own. Now I've been welding off of a rig ever since.
All right, now that we know your first welding rig, what welding machine did you have on your first welding rig? On the 95? Was it on the 95?
95 was an SA200.
Oh.
But before the SA200 was a Riggs & Stratton little Lincoln 5-horse powered little welder is what I started out with. And then I traded up to a Ranger 8. And then after the Ranger 8, I was like, okay, it's time to go big and get the big welder, get the SA200 pipeliner. So I traded it off and got the SA200, and that next week we had an ice storm here in Enid, and I could not power my house with the old SA200 because it had one DC plug on it. The old Ranger 8 would have been plenty, but I had to go big, and so now I've gone from an SA200 to a classic 300D, and then that only had 2 plugs on it, but still 3 kW. But now I've gone to a Vantage 300 that I could power my house if I needed to.
That is some solid information, because a question we get a lot on the YouTube channel, I get asked all the time, what welding machine would you recommend starting out with? And my answer generally is it depends on what you're wanting to do, but I think for starting out, kind of what I just learned from you, and the same, well, my first one was an SA200, but I quickly got away from that because of the AC power.
Yeah, AC power.
And even still to this day, I need something more than what I have. So interesting to hear how Kenny started and what he liked about the first one versus SA200s are cool, whatever, for certain things, but there's a lot that they're not as versatile.
Right.
You know, not as diverse. So that's solid info there, I believe. So good to know. That's what I was gonna say earlier was, I didn't know that somebody co-signed for the 95,
Yes.
for you to get a loan on the 95.
Yeah, to get the loan on the 95.
And who was that?
John Green.
But who was he,
And he was
to you?
He was
like
my boss at Garfield Equipment.
And that was a rig welding job or a single hand job?
Single hand job, but I needed a truck, and he said, well, I got that 1-ton 95 out there. So he co-signed for me, and the bank was saying, no, I wouldn't do that, but he went ahead and did it, and someone gave me a shot, and I went with it.
I think that's really cool because I don't know if you remember, but Fisher, the guy that me and my buddy worked for during the weekends on fence, co-signed on the loan for the 95. I didn't buy it from Kenny. I bought it from Troy Spencer, somebody else he was talking about that owned the truck before I did. The story on that real quick is Cayman bought the bed off of the 95 that was on the 95 that Troy was driving around, and Cayman said, hey, you ought to ask Troy if he'll sell the truck, because I was looking for a welding truck. I was 17 at this time, so it would have been 2007. And so I asked Troy if he would sell it, and he said, yeah. I think $5,500 is what I gave for it then. And I don't even know if I asked my dad, or I don't even know if I went to my dad. All I know is Fisher co-signed for me, so it's interesting. You know, I worked for Fisher. He believed in me. He was willing to co-sign, and I think that's cool that somebody seen your work ethic, they trusted you enough to co-sign on something,
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I didn't know that.
It was good about John Green. He seen my work ethic and said, yep,
yeah,
I'll co-sign for you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so most of your welding career has been mobile, and most of it has been on drilling rigs, correct?
Yes.
So why is that? What do you enjoy most about drilling rigs? Have you ever put much thought into that, like why you enjoy?
It's more versatile, and you're not at one place every day. You're different parts of the state, and you'll use a tape measure and levels, and you'll need more tools.
Right. So
versus a pipelining job.
Right. It just interesting. It really keeps your mind sharp, maybe, because it's challenging, and it's I can relate to you whenever you say a different job. You know what I mean? Because I get that same thrill out of going. It's one of the reasons I enjoy pipeline is because even though it's different, the different job site, like we don't go to the same place every day. Even when I'm on a job, I don't go to the same spot every day. I might go to this part of the right of way for a tie-in, but the next day we're going to be different road, different view. And drilling rigs is the same way. They're always moving drilling rigs around, so they need a welder to help. Tell them a little bit about what you do a lot on drilling rigs.
Yeah, either repairs, to repair anything that's broken, or put a conductor job on, or a strap job, or a wellhead. And then later on you have a cutoff maybe, but they're getting away from a lot of that, having a welder on site while they're drilling. So
Gotcha.
A lot of times you get them for repairs and whatever they need fixed.
But they essentially need a welder to move the drilling rig.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
sometimes when they tear something up or.
Yeah. I definitely remember a lot of repairs whenever the little I worked on drilling rigs was, because I mean they're made out of
iron.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing, 90% of it, 98% of it is iron, so there's definitely welding to be done. All right, like I said, I was gonna try to keep this as less winded as possible. I hope we've done that. I'm sure some of you have several questions. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments. If you've got questions for Kenny, let us know in the comments. I'll let him know. I'm sure we'll have him back on the channel at some point. If you are not a welder, or if you're in the Enid area, you know about Kenny now. He doesn't just work on drilling rigs. That is the majority of his experience, but he does do mobile welding of all sorts. So if you're in the Enid area and you need some welding done, we will leave his information in the description below this video. So again, thank you so much for the pipe. I did not expect to get this much pipe from Kenny, but I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you taking the time to share a little bit of your story with the viewers.
You're welcome, Austin.
I sure appreciate it. Thanks for coming with me today. I hope you enjoyed meeting Kenny. Like I said, if you have any questions for Kenny, which I'm sure you do, leave them down in the comment section below this video, and next time Kenny stops by the house, we'll ask him some questions and get them answered. Also, I hope you learned something Like I said, the pipe fence course will be open until Monday, July 24th. Link is in the description, so go check that out if you're interested. Have an awesome day, and remember, learn something every day.